Welcome to Cars on Call. I'm automotive journalist Steve Schutz, joined by our trauma surgeon, Dr. Stephan Moran. We're the only podcast who has a trauma surgeon to talk about car and automotive safety. And we've got
That would be me. That would be me.
automotive consultant, expert, collector, Adam Hudson is here. Hey, guys.
Hey man,
I
hey, just
did
note keeping thing. Do you have that view up or everybody's going to stay in the picture or is it going to remember to do that setting?
Yeah, it's a gallery.
All right, there you
Yeah.
go.
So here we go. And we're going to start with a different segment, a new segment. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. Obviously, because we have a trauma surgeon to talk about automotive safety, we always have a safety segment, but we're going to talk car spotting. Adams has a really great car spotting thing. We're going to talk good idea, bad idea, which is I don't know much about it. Stefan's going to talk about it. And
Okay.
then which car do you take to your high school reunion? So, Stefan, let's start with your good idea, bad idea. I like the idea. I don't know much about it, but I like it.
And by
So
the
the
way,
idea
before
is,
you,
we usually
you
talk about the news and we are not opinionated at all on this
and by the
show.
way, I wanted to mention I'm not the trauma surgeon. This is your first time tuning in. I did not want to go on record as impersonating a trauma surgeon. It's that guy in the golf shirt, like every trauma.
Adams, Adams, you kind of look like a surgeon,
Hey,
actually.
this is actually
Yeah,
I've actually it's a hoodie. I got my golf hoodie, man.
you're looking way less like a trauma surgeon.
Right. That's like he's the trauma surgeon you don't want to see when you open your eyes.
Exactly. I'm retired now,
The
so.
the unisurgeon. All right.
Anyway, back to the podcast. I, you know, so I had this idea that we get these news segments, and what we do is there were a couple big ones that came out this week that I wanted that I am immediately opinionated. So we're gonna do is you're gonna present your case whether you think this is a good move or bad move. So on these news subjects, and you got to make your case just briefly. All right, so here we go. The first one.
Maybe
Uh,
not briefly.
well, maybe, yeah, I know it won't be too briefly. So, all right, if you guys remember back in 2011, Lexus launched the GH concept car, the LF, and it had this very unusual looking spindle grille on there, very angular. And this thing has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the years go on. It's kind of Lexus versus Audi. Who can have the bigger grille in the front of their vehicle? Well, Akio Toyoda, who's the CEO of Toyota, he asked his designers, "Why are you doing the same design every time on the Lexus?" And he got tired of it. And he's like, "Seriously?" And he was just flat out tired of it. So at a recent show in Japan, they released a concept car showing where he wants the front end of the car to go. So let me pull this up. I'll go through here. Share theirs. So here is the concept. Sorry, there we go. Sure. All right, so here's the concept car, and so it's kind of this for if you're not watching, you can just think about it. You're trying to see Lexus, this like hourglass, gigantic opening on the front of the car, and then here's actually where it came out into production, a little bit more tame version. But here's another Lexus front end. Look at this thing. This is insane. I just thought they're awful, and then. Here's Steve. Isn't this what you have, Steve-O, the LX600?
Yes.
I mean, look at that grill. Look at that thing. But here's the concept of where he wants to kind of take the front end. So on this new concept car from Toyota. So my good move on Toyota's part. On good, this is a good move on Akio's part. Just move away from that spindle monstrosity grill thing on the front of those Lexuses. All right, Steve, what do you think?
I am unsure. I kind of like the grill, the current spindle grill. The one on my vehicle is too big. I don't like that. The one on the G model, I thought the GS, I thought was decent. You can't keep doing the same thing. So I guess I'll say good idea. I thought it was fine. It didn't bother me as much as it bothered a lot of people, and at least it was distinctive. By the way, you left out BMW, and when I wrote up the BMW X7, I said that the BMW X7 grille is easily visible from the space station. And
Well, I was just talking. This is just so. This is good move, bad move. This isn't about grills. This is
I
Toyo.
know.
This is Akio
So
Toyoda's what he did with Lexus.
I, here's what I'd say. One of the most popular luxury vehicles, it's also a sports car that holds its value more than anything else, is the Porsche 911. It has basically no grille.
Yeah,
So you don't need a big grille to be successful or distinctive. I think the big spindle grille ran its course. I was okay with it when it started. I think it's time. So for that reason, I'd say good idea.
okay. Well, here we
Okay.
go.
Interesting. I think it's a great move to move away from it. I can kind of see on one side they're trying to establish a branding identity. And Stefan mentioned the Audi, and I'd sent a graphic, and Stefan, you don't have to go dig it out, but it talked about the evolution of the
There
Audi.
it is.
And I remember when the Audi grill got to be what they call the single frame design. In other words, it's not split by the bumper in the middle, with an upper grill for the radiator and a lower intake for either the radiator or cooling for the brakes, etc. But then when, a designer really gets like three choices when they see something sort of catch on, they can either choose to ignore it and just kind of continue to go their own way, which Porsche has done largely, or they can adopt a theme like that, but put their own spin on it, or they can just exaggerate it through excess. And that is absolutely what Lexus did with the spindle grill, which I didn't know this till I started looking this up today, that it's supposed to pay some homage to Toyota's background in textiles, thus the spindle. I did not know that until this. But anyway, so Lexus does this huge grill that obviously just got bigger and more pronounced and potentially more divisive. I'm over it. I mean,
So,
I think it ran its course. I think it set a certain design language and style. The grill is kind of the face of the car in more ways than one, and I think it's run its course. I'll just say that they've exaggerated it and played with it, and I don't. You think about grills, and we'll move on. The Aston sort of established the trapezoidal grill. You can spot an Aston Martin from 3 blocks away and know that that's what that is. The BMW with the kidneys, like Steve said. But I don't feel like the design language of the spindle can really play that much longer. So let's allow the spindle to dwindle.
oh,
Ah,
very good. The
that's
spindle.
the final word on that, Stefano. You
That,
think?
yeah,
Hey.
I can't, you can't close out better than that. That's fantastic. All right, so next piece of news that got me, same theme here, EVs. So Mary Barra, who I gave a prediction, I think 2 years ago that she was going to be out. She's still around. She's the CEO of General Motors. She just announced a $35 billion investment in BEVs, which to me is just, it's insane putting that much money. But if you look at General Motors, they sold 144,000 EVs through the first 3 quarters of this year, which is a 105% increase over the same period the previous year. Still
Hmm.
makes up 6.8% of total sales. But I think the long game here, I think that money should be put in better hybrids, the engine. But I think this is a bad move on Mary Barra's part. Now, I will say this, and we can kind of, I'm going to segue this into the Ford as well. Wall Street Journal came out an article that they think this author thought that Ford is considering whether it should drop the Ford Lightning BEV pickup truck. They had some issues on the assembly line from the supplier, a fire, so they've kind of pretty much shut down that production anyway. But they only sold 33,000 electric F-150s in 2024. They've sold 24,000 through October this year, and it's reported Ford loses $44,000 per Lightning truck they sell. All right,
Wow.
so but I'm going to segue. So I think bad move on GM's part. I think it's a bad move on Ford's part. Now let me explain this. Ford is, Jim Farley is all about not getting behind the Chinese, and he feels we are behind the Chinese in terms of BEVs. So our American manufacturers have to try to keep up with China, and do better than China, because one day the majority of vehicles are going to be electric vehicles, one day, but it's not around the corner. But if they decide to quit basically all of their EV production, they're going to lose so much ground the Chinese will never catch up. So I think, GM did the Hummer. I don't get it why. Ford did the F-150. Jim Farley is redoing this new smaller way of building, which is going to have BEVs. So I think that is the right move. But I mean, how do you keep producing something that, you lose $44,000 per vehicle and you only sold 24,000 to October? It still is, I mean, that's more than I would have honestly thought. I think they should keep the F-150. They already have the line set up. Just, I don't know how they can maybe figure out a different way to save money. But I think they're going to learn so much from assembling this and having them on the road, people using them. That data can then be transferred further down the road to maintain and eventually hope get some form of dominance in the BEV market. But I say bad move on both parts.
I'm going to
With
agree with you, Stefan. It's the old joke about we lose money on every unit, but we make it up on volume. And this is so, I think two things. I think 35 billion investment is too much. They've already invested tons. It's bad money after good. I think GM's making a mistake by investing too much money. I think Mary Barra has been too invested in BEVs to the detriment of the company. And I think that Ford needs to pull the plug on the electric Lightning until they can start making money on it. 33,000, 24,000. It doesn't matter what the number is. When you're talking about the F-150s, which sell, somewhere between, it's usually around 800, sometimes a million units a year. 33,000 is a joke. And oh, by the way, GM makes all their money in their full-size SUVs and their full-size pickup trucks. Here's what I think, and I think this is the bottom line. And you mentioned hybrids. I think that's the way to go, but keep on going with internal combustion engines supported by hybrids. And here to me is the bottom line. Unless and until battery technology is better and charging technology is better, the better batteries than what we have now, this next generation that they keep talking about, which is, oh, by the way, like a Mirage, until we get to better batteries and better charging, stop investing huge sums of money. Should you keep doing it? Yeah, sure, but not huge sums
Right.
of money. Both those things are bad ideas.
bingo, I really can add very little. I think they're both bad ideas, and I don't know what, did somebody cancel Mary Barra's subscription to U.S. News and World Report? Has she not ever seen this
Where did that come from?
uh, I mean, has she not seen what the world is seeing, which is a decent sized backlash? And I agree with Steph, yeah, they're coming, but it's not tomorrow. The hybrid technology, let's just say an average vehicle gets, 25 miles a gallon on the road. That's probably a little high. If you have a hybrid technology, you're going to get 50 or 60. That slashes the non-renewable energy source in half right there. And we can do that. People can do that in their driveways. They don't have to buy charging stations. They don't have to wait 6 hours to charge up their car. The technology, like Steve said, is just not there. So that's a mondo investment and kind of a losing game. Relatedly, with the F-150, can you imagine how difficult it is to sell an F-150, the Lightning, how difficult it is to sell one? So some guy finally convinces a customer based on merit and good salesmanship, and he sells one. And that's bad news for Ford. It's like, shoot, we sold one. That's 44 grand at the door. That is a terrible way to celebrate someone's sales skills. Cut the stupid thing loose. Not stupid, it's an incredibly smart vehicle, and I think the world thought we were going there, but just cut it loose until technology catches up.
Yep. So
And
that's
that
all I
wraps
got
up
for
this
unless you.
episode of Cars on Call.
That's all I had on the good move, bad move was
I think, yeah, good idea, bad idea is
good
a
idea, bad idea, good move, bad move,
and
really.
yeah, I love this whole conversation because guess what? We had this conversation 3 years ago. We had it last year, and we're going to have it in 3 years. This is not going to real. The conversation is not really going to change until the technology improves. So, all right, we got car spotting, and Adams, you had a pretty cool car, assuming you're going to do that one, but car spotting with Adams Hudson, the car collector.
Well, I think this is a car that a lot of people, it would you catch their eye whether you're a collector or just there you go. I promise you, when it was in Charlottesville, Virginia, went to a wedding for a
So
great niece.
for the listeners, tell them what you got here.
Oh, we are looking at not only is it a fetching color of dark green, but it's a Mercedes 280 SL, what they would call the Pagoda roof back in the day, that came out in 63 in Europe, 65 in the US, lasted till 71, and went through the 230, 250, and 280 SL, designating only the engine size. And this is a 280 SL. Paul Brock design, BRACQ, was an interesting spelling on that design. And it's just really cool. And the Pagoda, sadly, this one does not have its Pagoda roof on it. It's got the soft top. The Pagoda roof might be at home because they came with them. And there you go. And it's Pagoda because it's got that dip down, sort of a concave roof, sort of like the Buddhist temples would have the Pagoda roof, and then that's why everybody used that nickname. But it was a neat old car and just built solid as a dang vault back in the day because they were still hand built, pretty largely, machine stamped and hand screwed together till the end of this series in 71. And it's just a neat old piece, not super fast, but reliable as it can be and pretty safe for its era and just very Mercedes-like quality. And dang it, I was in a rental car or I'd have left a note on it because it looked like it to me, it looked like somebody was sort of like it had their time with it. It's sitting out in a bank parking lot by itself and the back window's all cloudy. And I was feeling like its next caretaker, but I didn't have a pen and I had to get to the
Then
airport.
it's in Virginia and it has Massachusetts plates. It's like it got stolen and dumped.
Yeah.
I mean, it's parked on the line too. Look how it's parked.
Right.
It's
I
parked.
just noticed that. Yeah, he
Yeah, it's
sure.
parked on the line. It's like, yeah, they hijacked it. It broke down and just abandoned it. I gotta
That,
say, of this era of, post 50s, 60s, the modern era of Mercedes coupe or two-door convertible, the 280 SL to me is proportionally, it looks right. The size looks right. I love the tire fitment, which wasn't always great on some of these early cars.
yeah.
This car to me, the little chrome bumperettes, this car to me is the coolest of the SL Mercedes. This is my very favorite of those. And that Pagoda top is just, that thing is just so cool. It was cool when it came out, and it's still cool.
I
This
agree. What
is,
do you think, Steve?
yeah, I totally agree with Stefan. There's a coolness about this. This is very Mad Men, is that
Yeah.
generation, that era, and it has this kind of less is more design,
Yes.
and yet it's distinctive. It's very Mercedes. I would say it's very Paul Bracq.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really great. My favorite Mercedes is the next one, the R107, which
Hmm.
was the 450 SL that we had for years here in America. But this one is absolutely beautiful. I think they did this, and Adams, I don't know what your thoughts are. I think they did this because the 300 SL was too much. It was too
Yes.
expensive, too over-engineered, and yet the 190 SL was too little. They took their sedan and they made it into a SL. It was just slow and kind of awful. And yet this was like, all right, this is better, but not over the top.
Man, I've never heard it put like that, but that's exactly right. The 300 SL was too extreme and too race car bred. Still very reliable, but just so much car, especially for the day. And the 190, even when it was new, people talked about how slow it was, and boom, this is the Goldilocks. It's right in the middle. It's not too much, not too little.
And look at those hubcaps, man.
Yeah.
I love those hubcaps with the painted center that matches the car and the Mercedes emblem. Yeah,
Yeah, I have to say, Stefan, they really nailed it and they just got it just right. And I give Paul Brack a lot of credit because if you think about the sedans that came out around the same time, the S-Class especially, had the same feel. It just seemed right.
yep.
And you can't argue with its visibility.
Uh, yeah, the
I'll ask the trauma surgeon. Everything's fantastic till you roll it over.
yeah, well, exactly. That's a case with any convertible.
But at
So,
least you can see what you're about to roll over.
so what do those sell for, Adams? A good
Uh,
280 SL.
a 280, which would be the top of the heap in the lineage. Sometimes it goes to earlier car, but for sure this one is the most developed and the most powerful. You know, on the low end for a project car, they've actually come down in the last few years. A project car, 45, 50, an incredibly nut and bolt, you know, done by Gold Wing Motor Company or somebody of some repute, it's going to be 100 and a quarter. So a pretty good
Wow.
spread.
Okay.
And you could get a few with the most were automatics. You could get a few with the ZF5 speed, which will add 30 or so percent to that.
Oh, yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. I'd have to have that.
Yeah.
All right. Beautiful car.
Oh, I was speaking when you just mentioned that. I did want to mention this one. So, did you read that Tremec designed a manual transmission for the Corvette?
I saw that.
Yes.
Did not.
So
Oh,
they
wow.
designed it. They basically took their gear case, the automatic case, in that exact case and built a manual transmission in it. They're saying to be about a 30 grand swap to do on your mid-engine Corvette. Good move. That's really cool.
People will buy that up because in the Ferrari world, which is way, 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 way more rare, the 360s and 430s, they just, I don't know how many thousands they've done, and they're about the same money as that. But to do it for a new Corvette, that's going to be cool.
Yep.
By the way, we recommended that Corvette do it themselves, have a
Yeah.
GT3 touring, equivalent for the C8, and I think it would sell like crazy.
I'm
Yeah, it's still
expecting a royalty clip.
yeah, I mean, yeah, explain to me why Tremec had to do that and why
Right.
GM didn't ask it so they can do it. Now, I mean, that's another. Sometimes these decisions from GM, I just don't understand. But
We have talked about this and
yes,
we have said, and I feel kind of embarrassed because Doug DeMuro is talking about it all the time now, but I think we were first. GM should have done a Blazer that was like the C10 and, like the Bronco. If they came out with a Blazer
Exactly.
version of the Bronco,
Yep.
all right.
anyway.
Trauma surgeon safety.
All right, so we're going to revisit one of my favorite topics here, and this is traffic calming, the old roundabout. So around the country, very slow adaption and putting roundabouts in. But we've actually got some good data has come out here from last couple years from Iowa and Pennsylvania. So I love roundabouts because you don't have to stop at a stupid stoplight for no reason. You're going down the road, it's 1 a.m. and the stoplight just turns red and there's nobody coming the other way. I mean, so and then and they waste and the fuel savings and everything, and then you've got people doing left-hand turns against traffic. So, but from the safety standpoint, they're the way to go. So some of the data that we've seen from Ohio had some and Iowa's had them, but they looked at they had took the crash data from 76 intersections that had been converted to a roundabout because they were dangerous intersections. And they found that the roundabouts decreased injury crashes by 69% and multi-lane roundabouts result in a 25% decline. So if you've got a roundabout with a single lane, you're going to have a higher reduction in crashes. But the thing to understand about the crashes difference in a roundabout multi-lane crash, it's a side swipe. Okay. That's
Hmm.
because people don't know what the hell they're doing and they're failing to yield. But so it's just a side swipe. It's not a T-bone type crash. So that's why you had the large reduction in injury rate, but there's also the crash rate doesn't always come down so much. But and there's this really one bad intersection that they replaced it in 2018, and since 2018 they've had a 57% reduction in crashes, and most importantly, zero fatalities or serious injuries at this intersection.
As
Okay,
opposed to what were the fatalities before? I'm sorry.
they didn't say when the last, but since the roundabout has been put in 2018, 7 years, there has not been a single fatality at that because of the where there were at the previous. They didn't state
Right.
how many were there,
Wow.
but this was a horrible, I mean, just a dangerous intersection where people were getting injured and killed all the time in a roundabout. The thing about, Volvo wanted to have zero deaths, all the big automotive manufacturers this year. But here's an intersection change, and it makes sense. I've talked about the two most common crashes for the elderly, the older adult and the young new driver is failure to yield turning left in an intersection.
Hmm.
Young kids think they can make it, they don't have time, and elderly people just don't see the car coming. Okay, so it's a visual thing. And that's why so these roundabouts work. Pennsylvania actually has 20 years of crash data, and they published it, and their crashes with injuries were reduced by 51%, and total crashes decreased by 7%. But they said those are mostly just side swipes. But think about it, injuries down 51%. But more importantly to me, and I think we're doing this whole BEV and save the world and green this and green that. Well, traffic flow through this intersections increased by 30% during peak travel times
Wow.
compared to when they had a stop sign or traffic light. So you've increased the flow rate by 30% by putting in a roundabout. Because think about it, you don't have to stop. The cars keep moving, you know.
Stefan, translate that a little bit for me. I'm a little bit behind here. The flow rate, as in the
So
number
look at like during
more
peak.
cars go through in an 8 hour period than they did before.
So like say you picked rush hour, 4 to 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And with the traffic light, 100 cars went through in
Okay.
2 hours. By
Okay.
putting in the roundabout, 130 cars could make it through in the same period of time.
Wow. What a genius design.
I mean, they're everywhere in Europe. I mean, like I said, when I was in Italy driving, I think I stopped, we drove an entire week. I think I stopped twice at a stoplight the entire time I drove in Italy. And we were in cities and everywhere.
One thing, Stefan, you did a whole segment on motorcycles, and there's two times when motorcycles are going to die. One is they're going straight through an intersection and someone doesn't see them and pulls out, so they run into the side or the rear
Right.
of that car. And the other one is the car turns left in front of them and they run into that car, which is, you just talked about that. So for
Yes.
motorcycles especially,
Yeah.
this is one where the two times when they're going to die get taken away.
Well, we know that one of them mentioned that pedestrian injuries and accident, vehicle versus pedestrian injuries were down. They didn't give statistics on it. I'm going to Google here, do roundabouts save motorcycle crashes. Let me see what they say.
Because those really are the two
Yeah, that makes total sense.
circumstances. And it seems like motorcycles in particular would benefit from this. On the other hand, I kind of worry about pedestrians, Stefan, because
Yeah.
if there's a red light and there's a
Yeah.
walk sign,
Yes.
then you're fine. But a roundabout, ew, I don't know about being a pedestrian in a roundabout.
Right. Yeah, you would not be going to a roundabout. They'd have it set up elsewhere. But I just Googled AI says no roundabouts do not save motorcycle crashes. In some cases, it can be more dangerous for motorcyclists.
I'm
Um,
skeptical.
I am too.
they
I'm gonna say
they
AI's
they say
holistic.
drivers fail to see the motorcycles leading to side swipe or entering crashes. And if cars are hitting each other, and they only decrease crashes by 7% because people are side swiping in a roundabout, they're going to be side swiping motorcycles too. But interesting.
That is. I thought that was
I
incredible.
would have to say that it did not talk about fatalities. That talked about crashes. So that's a big difference. Let me just type in deaths. Yes, roundabout significantly reduce crash fatalities for motorcyclists. So crashes are up, but like Steve said, the type crash that a motorcyclist is going to have, way more likely to survive that because people in a roundabout are typically doing 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. They're going
Mhm.
slow. Um,
Mhm.
so Andrew, we've got a couple in Alabama, not a whole lot, and I've heard people talking. Yeah, they hit this roundabout. People didn't know what they're doing. They actually have to educate the public. Imagine that. But I would love to
Stefan, you
see more
talked about
roundabouts.
traffic calming features in Europe and also roundabouts. And I hope that people listen because you've made this point before. and I think it will make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's, you know, drivers aren't getting pissed off at each other. They're not running lights. They're not cutting in front of traffic. And just think about it. It would how your flow. I mean, you would get home sooner. Burns less fuel. There's nothing that you can say is bad about a roundabout other than you're an American and you know you just don't want to have to learn how to do it.
You know, they do take a tiny bit of getting used to. Once you're
Yeah,
used to them, they're like anything. You just sort of like deal with it. You have to understand that if you're entering it, you're yielding to the people in the circle, and that's kind of it. But I'm with Steve. You know, you don't see them in urban centers where people are trying to hop across the street like playing Frogger with oncoming traffic.
right.
But I guess a normal intersection helps there or some other pedestrian crosswalk. But you know, they're a great idea. I do see them sometimes in places I think, was this a national highway funding way to spend the money or they were going to lose it? Every now and then you see them in the weirdest place. Like, why is this even here? But more often you see them in places where it totally alleviates congestion.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move on. Another Stefan idea that I thought was awesome. So, Stefan, you had the idea that we haven't talked
Yes.
about what is the best car to take to a high school reunion.
Oh,
Yeah, I
I'm
haven't.
glad
I
you
missed
didn't
my
ask him. I'm glad you didn't ask Stefan on his good idea about putting green testicles on the back of your pickup truck.
yeah.
Because that was
Don't
an idea that needed just a little marketing money and you'd have sold a bunch.
Yes, we're not talking about trading up your spouse before your high school reunion. We're talking about, what vehicle are you going to take to your high school reunion? And I think I thought about this more when I was in high school, and I kind of forgot about it because we kind of had a couple guys that like cars in high school, and there's some cool cars in the parking lot. Yeah, like, yeah, what do you think you'll bring to to the reunion? And I was thinking about the 50th reunion, it's just not too far away. So I got to thinking, now looking at it from our age versus, I wish I would have written, I knew I knew what I'd hoped I would have been driving for my high school reunion at that time, but I kind of changed a little bit on it. But yeah, so who wants to go first? This is pretty good. Adams, why don't
Well,
you
what
go
we did
first?
was we all picked three, and
Three cars, yep.
it's interesting because you don't want to go over the top because then you look
Yep.
like you're kind of a joke, but at the same time, you know, nobody, literally nobody wants to show up at their high school reunion with a base Corolla.
On the emergency spare.
Yeah.
I've been driving my wife's mom's Crosstrek periodically, Subaru Crosstrek, and I'm used to driving nicer cars, and you get no respect. People just cut in front of you. Like that's you don't want to take that to the high school reunion.
No. Yeah, they think you were doing a little bit more than just cross trekking. Yes, the old
Yeah, they just you
Subaru.
just like you're obviously a failure. So, all right,
Yeah.
So how do you
Stefan,
identify when you're driving that car, Steve-O?
identify as a lesbian, of course. So, Stefan, this was your idea, so I want to see your
All right.
three
All right.
I
So let me
like,
because
all
yeah.
right.
because
Yeah.
this is so it's kind of cool. It's kind of cathartic.
Yeah. All right. Let me get over here to mine. Okay. So, all right, I got that set up,
By the
ready to
way,
go.
I would bet, Adams, you can chime in. I would bet Stefan was very cool in high school.
No, I was not one of the
Oh no,
cool ones.
I would have bet so too. Not just because you're on our show, and it's disappointing to hear you said you weren't. We, in
No, I
fact,
mean, I mean, yeah,
don't
I mean, I
believe
hung out.
you.
I would not call myself cool, but all right, let's find here. All right, so I'm gonna have a little bit of, okay, now I got to make this right. Sorry, I'm having some, there we go. All right, so I kind of thought about this in a couple different ways. So I was thinking, how do I want to show up or you know, what am I going to think about myself in the vehicle that I'm in? So I got thinking, if I was the cool kid, which you guys thought I was, but I was not. If I'd have been the cool kid, this is what I'd have showed up for my high school reunion. This is the black turbo Trans Am smoking the bandit with the screaming chicken. And back in high school, maybe not up in New York where you were, Steve-O, but this was like the epitome of a cool car, of the cool car back in high school.
That was, by the way, that was the cool car in Long Island.
So if I'd have been the
Yeah.
high school quarterback dating the cheerleader, the captain of the cheerleading squad, this is what I would be driving at my high school reunion. So, but that's not me. But I had to think about it. You're gonna have to road trip the car to the reunion. So I'm like, I can't take the Cobra. I'm not gonna trailer it there and then drive up. So I can't take my Cobra with it. So then I got to thinking, well, you know, if I just wanted to show up, then I wanted to make a statement. Here would be the Bentley Continental GT in
Nice
this
statement.
Yeah, yeah,
gorgeous
that's a
green.
statement.
That is a statement. And you say, like, yeah, I made it. Yep, I've made it. I've done well in my life. Take those suckers. You show up in that. But then I thought that really, if I am going to go to my high school reunion, what am I really going to show up in right now? I'm going to show up in, there it is. I'm going to show up in my F-150 Platinum. Here's why. It's an easy car to road trip there. But, people see pickup trucks. Yeah, there's F-150s. You got the base. But, if you've got a Platinum or you've got the limited F-150, the people that they know, oh, that's a nice truck. And I feel like honestly, that's what I would probably take to my high school reunion would be my F-150. But if I had the Bentley though, if I really had a Bentley, it would be that car. But realistically, this would be with my stable of cars that I have right now. This is what I'd have. My dream car would be the Bentley. But then you got to do a whole lot of talking and explaining. Did you win the lottery, dude? Nice ride. So, but nobody even noticed you pulling up in this. So,
But but that's an incredibly, I mean, that's almost a statement truck for the people
yes.
who follow trucks. That's a top of the heap kind of truck.
So those are
Adam,
my three. I had some
how
other
does
wild ideas, but back then I really thought I'd be showing up in a guards red 911 Cabriolet. If back in high school, that would have been my dream car, but I don't have a Porsche yet. But
I'd
I guess
like to see you in the black and gold Trans Am sporting the porno stash.
I got a little bit of this porn stash here. And that smoky. And one of the girls that went to college with, Leisha was her name. She was a KD at Birmingham Southern. She came to college her freshman year in this, 1979.
She was
And
a
I was
hit.
like, oh, she made wet. She probably weighed 95 pounds. And, and she was a redhead. And she said, yeah, her daddy really liked this car and wanted her to have one. But she kind of rolled her eyes. But I love that car.
that's pretty cool. I love it too. All right, Adams.
Let's see. Steph, I think you got
Yep,
graphics.
there we go. I did better this time. There we go. There you are.
The first one to me, a Porsche 911 is almost always in very good taste, and as long as you don't do huge wings and some crazy wheels or exhaust or something like that. And I like, that it's reasonably modern.
Tell them what kind of Porsche it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a 991. It is that particular one's a 2016, so it's last of the naturally aspirated motors pre all turbo, and it's in just what Porsche calls dark blue, not the most creative name, but it's got the tan interior with the sport seats, and it's got the brushed silver Targa bar, and I don't know, I loved this spec, and I just think the Targa, and I think I've got another view of it.
I do. I love the Targa. I
Yeah,
think I like it. It's kind of
and
like
it's
got the little bit of the Audi R8 blade kind of going
yeah.
through the roof line with that piece
Yeah.
of aluminum. And I think that would be a great choice. That'd be very
And
cool.
it's elegant enough without being too showy. Actually, when Steve said you wanted to be understated, I scratched the lime green Aventador right off the list. But this one, I don't know. I just like it. It gives the suggestion of being a little bit more fun, with the top that comes off. So I like that car. That's probably my pick.
Love it.
And then second, since this is the
Oh,
30th reunion from
oh,
1996, another graduate from that year would be the NSX, and it went to the second gen of that, meaning it went to the 3.2 motor. It's got better, to me, a better design, more modern design wheel. And this is the NSXT, which is the Targa. In fact, this one happens to be that's Kaiser silver, I only know that because that's the color of the one I had. They had another silver too. I forget what they call it. But it's just it's a neat old piece. And Japanese cars were definitely coming into their own. And as opposed to the other Japanese big profile kind of car, the Supra, I have always liked the NSX. I thought
Oh,
that
I love the NSX. I think I don't like the new one didn't do much, but when that car came out, that car was a real game changer.
it was. Yeah.
It and technologically, it wasn't the fastest. It wasn't it, but it was just right. Everything about it was just right. It's kind of like a supercar Miata. It just balanced. It
Yeah.
not overpowered, not underpowered. It's it's a mid-engine car done right.
Well, and Honda was definitely in their element. I'm not saying they're not in their element now, but they were so much more experimentally creative in the engineering. I mean, this car was full aluminum monocoque, it had titanium connecting rods, sodium filled valves. It was an 8,000 RPM motor. I mean, they just went crazy with this car, but they didn't go crazy with the styling. It was a little slab sided, a little understated, but now in hindsight, this has aged far better. I promise you, you park a 348, which would have been its competitor, the Ferrari 348, next to it. I'd take that NSX all day long.
Yep,
Yeah.
very nice. All right, you got
Okay,
one more?
the number three, my quasi-responsible car is an AM AMG 63.
Oh yes, that's a great call.
Oh, I'm crazy about that. One of these days, and I've never owned an AMG anything, but that particular one, the long roof, that's the one that it just gets me, and it looks good, it sounds good, it actually has some utility factor, and I love my SUV, I love my GTS Cayenne, but something about a lower regular car type platform is just very appealing to me. So that's my third pick.
Those are great picks.
Great picks.
Damn, you put your whatever your dog of choice is, presumably Doberman's in the back.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really, and it is understated, but it's still, all of those cars are going to get noticed.
yeah,
But when you crank up that AMG when you leave, I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it's people go like, oh shit, yeah, because they may not know what it is, but the
And
minute
you
if they hear it running, they're gonna go like, oh my God, that's
and you can leave two black marks on the
March.
pavement for just as long as any CUDA that's there at the same thing.
Yeah. I feel like high school is like our introduction to life. And it is funny and interesting, and I think significant that the coolest guys in high school are usually not the most successful, and the best looking girls are not the best looking girls 30 years later. So it's interesting how, it's the tortoise and the hare, and the tortoise usually wins. For that reason, I would not want to show up with something too flashy. I like both you guys' ideas where it's like a little bit understated. And by the way, Stefan, a Bentley coupe that's like a green is not, it's not shouting. It's just kind of,
Right.
yeah, I've arrived and here I am in high school.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I thought, a late model 911, you can't really go wrong.
Right.
The color doesn't matter, except I wouldn't want it to be orange or lime green. Just a gray or, gentian blue 911. And that's all you need to send the message that, yes, I've succeeded. And let's face it, if you go back to a high school reunion, you want to tell your classmates who may have looked down on you or thought you were a nerd, guess what? I've got a nicer car than you. And
Take that.
sorry. So yes, a late model 911 would be my first choice. And then scrolling down, kind of the same
Mm.
that Adams is
Mm.
talking about, a car that is understated, but still, if you know, you know. And even if you don't know, you kind of know. And that's the Audi RS6. So
The
it's a
Avant,
wagon.
people, if you're not looking at a screen, you really need to.
You need to look it up.
Most handsome wagon ever built.
Absolutely.
And it's very similar to, Adams' Mercedes AMG E-Class wagon. And then my last one, kind of channeling my Stefan, but I thought I could get a Range Rover, but I'm like, no, I want a Bentley Bentayga. I want the Bentley SUV. It would be moss green or something in a more subtle color. But I am not above, I'm not too good to want to stick it to some of the kids in high school who weren't nice to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's part of me that's like, I want to like spike the football and say, listen, I've had a successful life and I make more money than you. And here's my Bentley.
Yeah. Well, I think, we've talked about it. If you look at the
Sorry.
people in high school that the super popular, this and that, the quarterbacks, they peaked early in life. And you know, Steve and I had a long game to play because we had medical school residency. So we had to peak. We had to start thinking about peaking in college, but really you hit your stride when you hit medical school. And so yeah, we later in life peaking, but it's a good thing to peak later in life. But I'm kind of with you, Steve. I always did take great pleasure going back to the high school reunions and seeing the dude that was the the quarterback and Mr. Cool. Yeah, he's been stuck in some mid-level boring ass job and has really, yeah, the success didn't come because he peaked too early.
Yeah.
And then exactly like you said, Steve, all the hotties, well, they peaked too early, but it's really the girls that blossomed in middle age that I went back. I was like, I kind of remember the girl and those kind of, but I was like, holy smokes, they just and so same thing, they peaked later in life. So, but you're right, you kind of want to go back and there is a sense of pleasure. Yeah, what do you, well, what do you do? Retired trauma surgeon. As a colonel in the Air Force, Would you? Oh, yeah. Well, I worked for a landscaping company for a while, and
I'm sort of in between jobs.
yeah,
Well, the quarterback who's selling insurance and barely
yes,
making it, that kind of thing. And, let's face it, it was an emotional time, high school. And, I always felt kind of not good enough.
Well, I tell you, whoever thought Steve-O was the nerd because he was studying, actually listening in biology class, they may not want to come to you as their gastroenterologist who wants to stick it
stick it
to
to
them.
them.
You may want to shop around a minute. If you see a Bentayga in the parking lot of the gastro, you might want to keep shopping. But no, I get it, and I swear this is almost turning into a little bit of a life lesson for those of the younger listener watchers here. Honestly, being too showy is not a great thing. Being being too braggy at too early of an age is not a great thing because life pays dividends and life also has punishments. And I think probably the most remarkable thing that I see now is on the very rare occasion where you do see Mrs. Beautiful or Homecoming Queen or Mr. Quarterback had everything going on in high school who have sort of burst through and they are good people. That to
Yeah,
me is almost the most remarkable, but I'm telling you, that's the exception. Absolutely the exception and not the rule. So listen up, you youngsters.
yeah,
It's
but it's so hard to convince a high schooler or a junior high or even a sixth, seventh grader that it's okay not to be one of the cool people. Okay. It's
yeah.
hard to convince that because that's just growing up in America. I don't know what it's like in other schools around the world. I'm sure, but yeah, trying to convince somebody at that stage of life, you know, stop focusing on being cool and focus on educating yourself and thinking about your future.
The vast majority of every high school class is not cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right. Well, we have saved, thank you, Stefan, because I love that topic. We've
Yep.
saved some time every once in a while. If someone feels like it, they can have a rant. Well, I got a rant. And I'm
Gonna stick it to somebody. My God. We're not leaving this show until Steve gets his due.
I have a rant, and I think I'm going to speak for a lot of people of a certain age. This is not something that if you're 30, it bothers you, but if you're 50, or in our case, 60, it bothers you. And it's new car introductions. New cars would be introduced for years and years, decades, seemingly forever in October, and you had a new car introduction. It was fantastic. And now, new cars, new car introductions do not excite me. And I feel like I've been a victim of theft and it bothers me. So let me just lay the groundwork here and you guys can weigh in because this really, I'm getting angrier by the year. And when I was a kid, the new cars would come out and it was October and it was so cool. And I'm not stupid. I'm not naive. I knew that 1970s cars, it was a Malaysia, I knew they kind of sucked. But you had big American land yachts, you had weird Japanese econo boxes, and you had expensive German cars. They were all slow, they were mostly poorly made. I wrote this down because I think it's true. Unless they were Japanese, in which case they were tiny, quirky, well made, and rusted,
Yeah.
or German and super expensive. And yet, I loved all of it. I loved the whole thing. The land yachts, the Japanese cars that were like tiny, you could fit them in your shoe, and the German cars that were crazy expensive. I loved all of it. By the way, I'll give you some examples. 1975, there was a new that all the new GM cars had square rectangular headlights.
Oh
That
yeah.
was
Yeah.
cool.
Big deal.
77, they got downsized. That was cool. The 72 Ford Pinto, an American trying to make a new small car. It was cool. The 76 Corolla, by the way, we talked about this last week, the really cool 1978 BMW 320i. The 80s, that was all kind of crappy, but the 80s through 2010 was great. And I'm going to say this, the divine 1988 BMW 535i.
Yeah.
The wonderful Porsche 944 Turbo, same year, 560 SEL Mercedes S-Class, even the 1986 Pontiac 6000 SE. We loved all of them. 1986,
Lights.
the new Honda Accord had pop-up headlights. It was great. The 1995 Chevy Tahoe, I thought it was so cool. The Dodge Viper, the Divine E46 2000 BMW M3, E39 M5, the 2005 Mercedes E55. I'm mentioning these specifically because I know they all strike a chord with anyone who likes cars. And then starting 2010, everything faded. I started to not look forward to new cars. Here's one reason why. Japanese cars, German cars, American cars, they all got homogenized. They're all the same damn thing. You drive a Lexus GS and a 5 Series BMW, they drove pretty much the same. You couldn't hardly tell a difference. They're all gray silver. Here's now, and this is why I'm angry. The new Audi S4 was just announced. It's slower than the last one. The new hybrid BMW, and now I'm going to get angry. M5 weighs fucking 5,400 pounds. The Porsche Taycan is super expensive and it breaks down all the time. The BMW 2 Series sedan is on a front wheel drive platform shared by Mini. Manufacturers are bragging about the screens. They're bragging about hybrid technology and electrification. They're bragging about CO2. The best-selling passenger vehicles we now are, I'm going to use this term, intensely uninteresting. RAV4, Honda Civic, Nissan Rogue. Every year, cars are more electrified. They're more self-driving. How can you get excited about a tidal wave every year of white and gray and silver crossovers and SUVs? It's getting worse. It's not better. I'm psyched about the Ford 5-liter Mustang with a manual. I'm psyched about the Porsche 911, the Mazda Miata, the BMW M2 and M3 manuals, the Range Rover, the F50, F-150 Raptor, the Audi RS6. I'm not psyched about anything else I'm angry. It's a Tesla gray, white mix of nothing.
Yeah. Well, you know, I can't disagree with the word. I did not have that emotional cord because, you know, every now and then, this is almost like when you look back through old photographs and you go, wow, I remember doing that. And wow, look at your hair and look at the style and look at it. You get this sort of retrospective and it puts it your modern day like, whoa, things have really changed since then. And you knew it at the time before you started looking back at the photos, but you're reminded of it and it's real and it's impactful. Steve, when you started talking about new car debuts in October, that was like as significant as the leaves changing. The new stuff was coming out. There was a sense of anticipation. There was a sense of theater about even doing it. They would have these glamorous shows, the likes of which Hollywood movie debuts would even not even hardly compare. And everybody had a stand, and there was glitzy girls and models and engineers and people standing around pulling the draped cloth off and applauding politely or enthusiastically trying to sign up to buy that thing. And yeah, of course, we were a little bit more entertainment starved versus the people of today. However, the automobile is still, I think a lot of people say, the most significant invention of the last couple centuries. Yeah, smartphones, but you know, that's really a subcategory of entertainment. I mean, the automobile gets you where you're going. And I don't disagree. And I swear, man, when you said a 5,400 pound 5 Series, what in God's name are we doing? And yeah, to be bragging about screen size is about the wimpiest thing you could ever do with what is supposed to be an exciting, visceral, visual, stimulating product. Screen size? Is that where we're going with this? So, yeah, I'm excited about the ones you mentioned. You're way more versed in the new cars. And the only other one I would say is if the photos of the Lexus mid-engine super sports car, if it comes out, I'm excited about that. And I'll say something that sounds near blasphemous before we let Stefan charge in here because I know you got comments too. I am a Ferrari fan from 40 years. You know, as long as I've been like looking at cars, as long as I've even known a Ferrari, I am so unexcited about the hyper, mega, ultra, super, maxi, newest, biggest superlative thing. I yawn when I see them come out. I'm over that. And I don't believe that's, you know, fully age attributable. I just think they're just, let's copy what everybody else is doing. And the homogeneity, if that's a word, homogeneous designs of that world is just, come on, people, get a clean sheet of paper and do something different. So I don't disagree. Now you've got my blood pressure up. I was fine until you started.
Well, we did a lot of traveling this last year, and when I was in Italy, that the colors of the cars were just fantastic. And then I got back home, and here I've got a carbonized gray F-150. Okay, I mean but my Cobra is a cool color. The Bullet Mustang is a cool color. My wife's got a red car, burgundy car. But I think, Steve-O, I think what a lot this has to do with, well, the number one problem is the cookie cutter crossover. Okay, they're
Yes.
just freaking everywhere. They're just everywhere. But I think also I got to think about when you mentioned like the pop-up headlights, this and that. I think what manufacturers are doing now is they're just doing these little minor refreshes every year on these vehicles and not really bringing out a new one. Now, they did it with the F-150 with the aluminum. That was a big deal. But back in the day when, one of these cars, when they did a 3 to 5 year cycle, when they came out with the new version, the car looked the same for 3 years or 4 years. And then they came out with the new version of it. And it was something to look at. But now, it's like the hair's part on the left one day, and now they part it on the right the next day, but there's nothing radical. There's nothing big changing, and Adams, you mentioned the whole hybrid car. We talked about it. I'm not going to go over it. I don't even read those, look at them. I could care less about hyper supercars. Because they're unobtainium. It's like, they end up in somebody's collection you'll never see on the road. But the cars you see all the time out there, it is absolutely boring. Just look at any parking lot. They're all freaking SUVs and
As far as
crossovers.
the hypercar goes, when I was young, a Ferrari was unobtainium, but it was cool.
Yeah.
Now the Ferrari is unobtainium, but it's not cool. It's not interesting.
Yep. And it's funny, there was a little there's an attribute I like to put on automobiles as far as approachability. We've all driven fun cars, and it's fun that maybe you're at the gas station, somebody goes, "Hey man, what year is that?" Or, a cool car. And approachability, a Porsche is approachable. An M3 is an approachable car. An older Ferrari, even in its day, was approachable. And now it's not. It's too standoffish and too flamboyant. And if you think about driving one of those a new Lamborghini or McLaren or Ferrari because that's your dream car, and yay for you for having enthusiasm. But if you drive one to your 30th high school reunion thinking you're going to look cool, you're really going to look like the guy that everybody wants to kick in the gonads.
Yeah.
By the
It's
way, here I think is what it comes down to, and I'll ask you guys this one question because I think it's the bottom line question. Are you excited when you look at new cars to buy one? And when in 1988, with the 535i and the 944 turbo and the 560 SEL, I was like salivating. Those were great, desirable cars. I was filled with desire. I am no longer filled with desire for any new cars, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I just, yeah, I haven't seen. I think what's happened is everything is so vanilla out there now in terms of cars. So even going down the interstate, it used to be as a kid, oh, there goes this, there goes that, and you'd see all these different cars, but now you're going down the interstate and it's just blah everywhere. Everything is just blah. Except for we
yeah,
do have the occasional Raptor, which I think that you've got the Broncos that are jacked up. So those I do get excited, but outside of that, but you're right, there has not been in the sedan world, there's just nothing left anymore. I mean, Ford doesn't
Jeff,
even make a sedan.
you were following NASCAR, and you may still follow NASCAR, but I was following it when my son was little, and you could sort of, go, oh, there's the Mopar, there's the Ford, there's the Chevy, and then Toyota come around, and you could tell. And then when they did the car of tomorrow,
Oh
and
yeah.
where I'm going with this, it's like, let's just make everything. Why don't you just cheer for a paint job? Because everything looked exactly the same silhouette. I mean, exactly like don't deviate a millimeter or you're going to get fined. And it's almost like the new car manufacturers who do not have that constraint, by the way, are still doing it. They're just like this same silhouette. And Steph, you said it before, it's like a small, medium, large of whatever SUV you got. Everybody's got a small, medium, and large.
I
And
think Audi is the worst of it. Audi is the worst. All their, basically their silhouettes of their SUVs and their sedans are all exactly the same. Now they had the seven for a while. They did a couple of variations, but if you look across the entire lineup, they really have the cookie cutter thing going on. But yeah,
well,
I'm with you, Steve-O.
let this be a
I used to
lesson.
get 3 or 4 car magazines. I don't even now. I don't even get those because there's nothing I really want. All they have to write about is the super hypercar, which I don't want to hear about it.
What's the bottom line? The lesson here is maybe, with all the influence that we wield across manufacturers, design teams, it's break a mold or two. Try to do something a little bit striking. I mean, don't just be weird for weird's sake, but just try to do something a little striking, a little minor technological push that's not screen size. I swear that makes me mad now thinking about it. But try to break out with something and have a bit of a halo car. And it doesn't have to be this hyper car, but something that'll actually sell
Right.
and let that be your design. Something different.
All right,
Yeah, I
that's my
think,
rant.
probably the only I would say, I mean, going out and thinking about it, when the Tesla Model S came out,
Yeah.
the big, that was a striking redesign of a four-door passenger car. And
Yeah.
nothing else had ever looked like that. It was shaped that I actually thought that was really cool looking when it came out. I got excited. I mean, electric car. I mean, but that I think I was trying to think about it. That's probably the last modern passenger sedan that I thought was innovative, new, looked cool, and
It was bold.
it was
Yeah.
bold.
There
Yeah,
you go. And it's 12 years old and it scarcely looks dated, and they've barely changed it.
right.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, there's my rant. Stefan, close us out, man.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Thanks for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, remember to hit that bell, hit like, subscribe, and that way you will get a notification when we've got a new podcast out.